Ever since October 7th, and as we heard in many places, Palestinians broke out of their open air prison and resisted the occupation. Ever since then, we have been hearing about women and children dying in Gaza every day in large numbers. So. Undoubtedly, the people who are upset with Israel for not managing to completely avoid killing women and children, and certainly not managing to avoid what Hamas reports is ki the killing of women and children, surely they would all applaud Israel's world record of targeting only combatants in civilian areas without harming almost any civilians, right? Wrong, of course. Yeah, the international community, Israel's regular critics, if you want to call it that, and Israel's so-called allies are either completely condemning the attack on Hezbollah or repeating the stupid and evil call for de-escalation or against escalation in response to this, rather than in response to the reason Israel has to do this. Welcome to the reality show. We are still continuing our ongoing celebration of the successful operation in Lebanon. But now we are also going to talk about some people who have different feelings, and we will enjoy their misery as well. Jonathan, you are not in Israel now, right? But you are from Israel.
That's
So,
right.
yeah, your thoughts on what happened and on the responses you've seen.
Yes, thank you, Razi. Hey, Razi. Hey, James. And Dan. First of all, I want to join the celebration. I poured myself a glass of some great homemade Georgian wine that I got from a friend. So first, we have to celebrate.
Wine
I
was
want
invented in Georgia.
Yes, of course. They have the best wine. Everybody should come to Tbilisi and enjoy great wine. But yes, the first of all, I was so happy today to learn that there was another wave. It's really exciting news. So absolutely very positive response from me from that end. However, when it comes to our various friends in the world, as Razi, you have alluded, they weren't so keen. They're definitely not pouring some great Georgian wine. So I think I'm not surprised. I think we could have all anticipated that, right? I'm surprised that people in Israel are still waiting to hear them say yes. That's a good thing. I'm surprised that the Israelis are still dealing with that. I'm surprised that we still don't have a a massive attack on Lebanon from with Israeli tanks and soldiers. I'm surprised by that. I'm not surprised by the anti-Semites, by the all these anti-civilizational voices. They will keep being against Israel, and I think it's a very now it makes it so easy to tell who is actually on the right side. They don't even care um this is all fake. We've known this. We've discussed it in the channel for very long now, but maybe the innocent people of the West who thought that they are concerned with protecting innocent lives, now they have been completely unmasked, and you know that whatever Israel would do, they will be against it because Israel is evil, and they are the good. So yeah, that's my initial thoughts.
By the way, I was looking at some of my favorite leftists on Twitter today to see what they say, and crickets. Like the last tweet was from 2 days ago in most cases. That's that which says it all. I mean, I often don't tweet for a week or so, but people who tweet daily all of a sudden have nothing to say. Yeah, they're really having a tough time coming to terms with this. I have to read Alex's comment here. From the river to the sea, now they can't even pee. James, your thoughts on the response so far from world?
Well, I did have the unpleasant experience of reading the Reuters, Associated Press, BBC, NBC in my country, all of their news outlets. You know, one thing I think is important to bear in mind is that the Northern Front, the whole Hezbollah situation, has been underreported, vastly ignored in the British and American press. It's as though it's only Hamas, it's only happening in the South, that's the only thing that's relevant. And I know I said it in the last program, The Daily Objective, but it bears repeating. Over 7,500 rockets and missiles have been fired by Hezbollah from Lebanon into northern Israel, displacing tens of thousands of innocent Israeli civilians. The fact that there haven't been more Israeli deaths in the north is simply a matter of the outstanding defenses that the Israeli government has. But the American media, the British media, for months has been ignoring this. Now, right away, America, after October 7th, America sent, an aircraft carrier group to the Mediterranean to sort of send a signal to Hezbollah and Iran, please do not expand this from the north. And that to some degree muted, as you pointed out in the previous show, there may well have been an intentional plan to invade Israel from the north that was sort of thwarted by simply that saber rattling. But saber rattling ain't going to do it, folks. It's not going to do it at all. As we said in the last program, Hezbollah has 50,000 militants in, that's an army, ladies and gentlemen. And the fact that thousands of them may have been badly injured in this brilliant attack, actually two attacks, is what I would say is, I'll say it again, a good start. But you have not neutralized the threat. And America is absolutely disgusting. From the outset, America should have said, no, we are at war with you, Israel. We're at war with Iran and all of its surrogates attacking you. Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas. Hezbollah is an armed, active combatant on the side of Hamas, and they have been since October 7th. They must be eliminated just as Hamas must be eliminated. As I say, that's a good start. But now I read Reuters, I read AP, and what do they say? They say, oh, children were killed. People, not targeted at Hezbollah operatives and Hezbollah leaders, nothing like that. Children and people in general were brutalized. Thousands of people were injured. And then they don't even get to Hezbollah's role in the war until, 5 paragraphs in, if they even mention October 7th. So it's really disgusting the way they're pitching this as if it was an atrocity or something, when it is not a minimal start at a reasonable act of self-defense. And they're characterizing it as some kind of war crime atrocity. No. The Western media is disgusting. They've been disgusting for months in downplaying and not reporting Hezbollah's whole part in all this. All of those thousands upon thousands of missiles and rockets that have showered into Israel from Lebanon just since October 7th. Just since October 7th, the media had dropped the ball months ago, in my view. The Western media dropped the ball many months ago when it came to Hezbollah. And so, of course, now they can set the table and set the context to make it look like this was just a brutal and, uncalled for random act of aggression on the part of Israel, when, of course, it's just the opposite. It's the beginning of a minimally required act of self-defense against these monsters.
America's response is always shocking and should always always during this war shocking, and should always be. We always need to remember Blinken's comments right after October 7th, when he said Israel can fight this alone if they have to, but as long as the U.S. is around, they will never have to. And Blinken, only sides with Israel when Israelis die, and if Israel does anything to prevent that or to respond to that, then he is not on the. And this again, this completely takes off the mask of all these people. You cannot pretend anymore that you are on the side of Israel if your response is to say the situation shouldn't escalate. Again, this is, you want to say that, why aren't you issuing 30 or 40 press releases a day saying we should avoid escalation, at every single rocket fired by Hezbollah? Why are you only issuing such statements when Israel finally does something to try to change what's going on? Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday, I've been watching the reactions coming out of people, and I was saying that, yeah, I was expecting them to be silent, but no, many of them are very loud, and many of them are, of course, attacking Israel for this. And and I made a point, and I think they pretty much proved me that nothing is ever good enough when it comes to Israel. And the fact is, Israel just shouldn't defend itself. That's what they have been saying between the lines. Israel just should die. Israel should just be destroyed. Because again, when they were talking about the casualties in Gaza, it was always the number is too high, the ratio is bad, the deaths are disproportional. Well, let's look at these ratios. What is it really? There have been civilian casualties. What are the ratios? 1 to 100, 1 to 1,000, meaning thousands of terrorists dead injured, and many of them dead, for few couple in total of casualties. And that's still not good enough, because it's just not good enough, because they really don't care about the ratios. It's and you can really see, and it really helps when you have some understanding of objectivism, because it is about the principles. It's not about the realities or like the specifics on the ground. It is the principle, and the principle is Israel is evil because it's trying to defend itself, and that's it. That's pretty much all the analysis you are getting. They will put it in the longer words, but that's essentially it. But to calm myself down, so I've been reading some of Cheng's X tweets, and so the most recent thing he said is, now Israel has blown up walkie-talkies in Lebanon. Buyer beware. If you buy anything from Israel, it might have a bomb in it. I don't see how anyone would ever trust an Israeli-made product again. From what I understand, these pages were made in Taiwan, or were imported from Taiwan. So again, you won't really expect anything. But now that he said that, I'm really afraid to go to my fridge where I have Israeli hummus, and I don't know if I should be scared
I
of that
mean,
now.
look,
Cherry tomatoes.
it's
I live in
funny,
mountains.
but really, if
Deathly
you think
fear of
about
cherry
it,
tomatoes.
if you think about it, that guy is really, really a piece of shit. And yeah, I know this is a family show, but people, I might be swearing quite a bit when we talk about these people today. Because look, it's not that people randomly went and bought Israeli products. That didn't happen to a single person. What he's saying, not a single person did that happen to. A terrorist organization bought communication devices to communicate to best kill Israelis. And yeah, and Israel used that very wisely and absolutely morally to harm them. So, Jonathan, I don't know. I can't. Yeah, you go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I was also thinking about the reactions in Lebanon, how the Lebanese government is reacting, essentially taking completely the side of Hezbollah, which makes me, I think we can come to this conclusion, which we should have probably done that. Maybe you have in the channel. I don't remember hearing that, but that there is not much of a difference between Lebanon and Hezbollah. That is the same exactly as Hamas is Palestine. Lebanon is Hezbollah, and the people, the Lebanese people, are they are not very innocent, to put it mildly. They're not innocent. They're allowing this whole thing to happen. Now they have a very significant amount of these fighters, the Hezbollah people, stunned essentially, and they're not acting against them. If the Lebanese were a peace-loving people, if the Lebanese didn't want Hezbollah, they would have revolted against them, used this moment, seized this moment, and got rid of them. Where is the Christian minority of Lebanon that's supposedly very anti-Hezbollah? Now is their chance to act. Where is this action? Perhaps we're not hearing because of fog of war. Maybe tomorrow we'll learn of it. I hope so, but I'm rather doubtful. So Israel should treat the whole country of Lebanon as we are at war with Lebanon, exactly as we should say we are at war with Palestine. So yeah, we should do that.
I agree with that. And by the way, you'll see on this channel, I don't know, I assume we've done like, I don't know how many thousands of shows. I assume we put Hezbollah in the title sometime, but it's usually, the title usually is, has Lebanon rather than Hezbollah because, that is, it's allowed. Lebanon has an army separate to Hezbollah. They can do something if they wanted to. They just don't want to. Now, in terms of the people, and I don't know if you listened to my Hebrew podcast when you were in Georgia, but if you did, I already said that there, but I'll say it in English as well. I think there is a spectrum, and Iran is on one side, and the Palestinians are on the other. Lebanon somewhere in the middle in terms of the people. So in Iran, I think the people are very much, many of them are against their government. And if we did act militarily, we would be inspiring them. They're already risking their lives. We would be inspiring them to take those additional steps, knowing that they're fighting alongside Israel. The Palestinians, I don't see anybody. They have different factions. The one thing they all agree on is the extermination of the Jews. Lebanon, I think, is somewhere in the middle. Yeah, I do think there could be, if Israel did enough in making it clear to the Lebanese people that they should fear Israel retaliating against Hezbollah, across Lebanon, more than they fear Hezbollah. I think maybe there will be those who stand up to Hezbollah and maybe to their government. I don't know. I wouldn't count on it, but I think that's a possibility. James, I just want to quickly read a comment here. Somebody says, Billy says, Sky News are actually at the Hezbollah funerals wearing hijabs. Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, when you go report from different places, you might, do different things to be allowed in. But again, yeah, it is a Hezbollah funeral. You don't just get in, if Channel 14 in Israel wanted to report from there, they wouldn't be welcomed. So yeah, it says something about that. On the other hand, as annoying as it is to see Western media outlets support terrorists, at least it gives us great footage like we got from that funeral explosion. So that's the advantage of terrorists supporting Westerners. James.
Well, if you don't want to get your hand blown off or something else blown off, you may not want to hang out with Hezbollah leaders and operatives. I mean, that's the thing. And I don't care who you are. If you are, if you're Western media, frankly, no, this is exactly the what happens in war. In Washington, D.C. just the other day, they just dedicated a statue to journalists killed during war. And it is a dangerous thing to be a war correspondent. There was that famous Fox News correspondent who was injured in the Ukraine war, for example, Benjamin Hall, and one of his cameramen were killed during that. They're brave. They're risking their lives. There's no question. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the way it is when you hang out with Hezbollah. It's dangerous. It's dangerous to hang out with terrorists. It's dangerous to hang out with people, the leaders and operatives in Hezbollah. Now, as Jonathan just pointed out, we're supposed to have this Christian population in Lebanon that opposes Hezbollah. They're supposed to be there. You're right, Razi, but where the hell are they? I mean, there may be a different, and that's the thing too. When I was a teenager in the 1970s, before the Islamic Revolution in Iran, Beirut was, I have friends that lived there and grew up there. It was a resort town. It was a place where people of all religions did interact in a modern Western way, at least for a time. And Iran was better too before the Islamic Revolution. There was a population that had embraced modernity before the Ayatollah took over there. And now today, I don't know about there are people within Lebanon and there are people in Iran who would be supportive. But ladies and gentlemen, we have to take them out. The governments of Iran and Lebanon have to be taken out because they are aggressive combatants in this war of civilization itself, ladies and gentlemen. If you think that let's pretend Israel wasn't there, where would all of this terrorist violence be heading? toward civilization, toward European and North American countries. Promise, guarantee. Israel is fighting civilization's war, ladies and gentlemen. That is exactly what's going on here. And we have to aggressively get behind Israel and support them in the destruction of Hezbollah. And that means Israeli troops going into Lebanon and taking out the threat where it comes from. That is not escalation. The escalation, ladies and gentlemen, happened decades ago, okay? Let Iran and all of its proxies fear escalation. And until that happens, there's no chance of getting a handle on this. But this means that all of them, Lebanon, with Hezbollah in it, the Houthis down in Yemen. Now, Yemen is only partially controlled by the Houthis, too. What do we say? We say Yemen is off limits because there's a separate government from the Houthis there? No, we don't. Do we say Iran's off limits because a good deal of their population could be pro-Western and are fighting their own government? I'm sorry, we have to go after countries, even when there might be a population there that would oppose the terrorists, because those are the countries that are now engaged in active warfare with Israel and the United States. And we better open our eyes to that fact and recognize that civilization has been at war for decades now.
Yeah, and the original title for yesterday's episode of the Daily Objective was Bibi's election gamble, and it was about Lebanon and Netanyahu's refusal to act and likelihood of not acting until Trump is president. And there's two problems with that. One, and I know we're going to get some angry comments in the chat, but there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. And two, you don't sacrifice your citizens until you get a friendly president in the U.S. That's not how you lead your country. So quickly, Kathy, thank you for the super chat. And Irit says hummus can be dangerous if you're not used to it. That is true. I think that falls under buyer beware, whereas what happened with the pagers is a bit different. But yeah, maybe we can send Cenk some special hummus. Yeah,
and a pager to remind him.
Daniel.
Yeah, so well, quickly, because we had David Boy in the chat asking, did Jackson Hinkle lose a nut or eye? So from what I understand, by the way, for those who don't know, Jackson Hinkle, or as I like to call him, the Moscow Manlet, a big propagandist for Putin. As far as I understand, he keeps posting. He already sent thoughts and prayers to the terrorists that died in Lebanon. So he's probably alive, although I don't know if he directly controls his ex. So we don't know anything yet, but we can always hope. But also something that I think Razi mentioned it a little bit on TDO, but we had a comment from the Lebanese Prime Minister saying, this was an attack on Lebanese sovereignty. I don't know, but you have a terrorist organization controlling like 1/3 of your nation, 1/4 of your nation. And well, technically Hezbollah is in the government, so I guess it's part of the nation. But again, what do you mean attack on Lebanese sovereignty? Like it's so ridiculous. The wordplay that people are using here. Like again, this whole situation is insane. And yeah, Lebanon should realize that they are helping this war. They are part of this war. If maybe if especially if you are a destabilized nation, you might have a terrorist organization in your nation. It doesn't automatically mean that you are contributing. But if you are not doing anything about them, if you are involving them in your government, if you let them participate in your elections, if they start an attack from your borders and you don't do anything about it, you are absolutely complicit. And when people talk about this, they always do World War II comparison, but and it's sort of overused. But there is one comparison I like to make, especially since it's 3 weeks now from basically in Slovakia, we've celebrated 80 years since the Slovak National Uprising. For those who don't know, it was one of the biggest uprisings during the Second World War against Hitler, basically. Slovakia started as one of the nations in the Axis. Basically, one politician in Slovakia basically betrayed Czechoslovakia and to create a Slovak state. And so Slovakia was part of the bad guys. But there was some opposition, and opposition stood up, and they stood up against the Nazis. They didn't have much chances. They were in the middle. This was in 44, so this was still a long time since the Soviets came. But they did stood up, and they failed. And after they failed, they continued the partisan resistance. They continued resisting against government until they were liberated by the Soviet army. But when the Soviet army came and pushed out the Nazis away, that's what you do. That's what you do when you live under a dictatorship. You stand up and you refuse to live under such a regime. And you might fail. But you always do it. But, the important part there was also the fact that there was a chance that someone else is coming. And I think that's what because I think there are people in Lebanon as well as people in Iran, and they need confidence. They also need confidence to stand up. They need to know that there are regimes in the West that will support them if they stood up against a dictatorship. But they are not getting that confidence right now.
Exactly right. It's a betrayal. It's a betrayal of those people, in fact.
Let me, Jonathan, quickly before I go to you, I have to say one of our regular trolls in the chat says that she, other than trolling us, she also watches Novara and Owen. I'm assuming she means Jones and Novara Media, which is not surprising. And Owen Jones, I believe, was among the people who was unhappy with this, although I can't tell because he blocked me on Twitter. And I want to quickly just say, that I wear that.
Is that the National Socialist, Razi?
Well, it's a socialist who wants the Jews exterminated. I don't think he would refer to himself as national, because I think the only nations he likes are Iran and the Palestinians. He's in Britain, so I don't think that's that nation is one that he likes. There's a report a few minutes ago that the Prime Minister of Lebanon spoke on the phone to the President of Turkey, Erdogan, of course, who else? And Erdogan says he's doing what he can to stop the aggression against Lebanon, and is going to provide aid and so on. And all I have to say about that is, Israel, you've done pagers, you've done walkie-talkies. Could you do phones now? Specifically, computers phones. The time has come. Jonathan.
Well, the Israeli chief of staff did say today that there are other means that we still haven't activated, so perhaps it's on the way. I completely agree with what Dan said. I think it was a very important point you articulated very eloquently. The fact that the Israelis are so weak and so acting in a war of pyrotechnics. It's an army of pyrotechnic. I don't know what the word in English. Maybe it's not the right term, but we're engaging in like magic. Fire. What's the word? I lost the word. Anyway. Yeah, this is weak. They are waiting, these Lebanese people, the good people of Lebanon, they're waiting for us, and we're not coming. And if after all this, there could not have been a better time to do this, to do the full invasion, whatever, with all of the IDF's might, and get the job done. Now is the time. Everybody's waiting. I hope the good people of Lebanon will, as soon as we do that, which I don't see the sign, but again, this is very early. We have the fog of war, so maybe there's something secret yet that we still don't know. I really, really hope so. We are kind of skeptical here, as the viewers can guess. Unfortunately, based on Netanyahu's track record, which isn't great, unfortunately, It doesn't look like that. I really hope it's not that case.
Paul says in the chat, Razi, yes, Owen Jones is very upset about it. Yeah, maybe I have a way of checking. I have access to the ARCUK Twitter account, which Owen Jones has yet to block. So maybe I'll look at what he has to say. Soupy Cask says, enough with the testicle talk. Well, we barely talked about testicles so far on this show. We did have them in the title. But look, 8,000 or 10,000 testicles were lost yesterday. So they're in the news. Yeah, they deserve to be commemorated, James.
Well, no more gonad headlines from me, but it is astonishing. Of course, anything that Owen Jones doesn't like, you can almost automatically, about this subject for sure, you can automatically guarantee is the opposite of anything that's moral or sane. So, of course, he's upset. And that little side benefit of all this is upsetting all the anti-Semites in the Western media. So that's a glorious thing right there. But Jonathan was absolutely right. My initial thought was, this is a good start. This is a good start. But there may be a concern on exactly. Cheers, cheers, my brother. Israel is fighting a multi-front war. It is surrounded by enemies that are hostile to it, that are active military combatants in this war since October 7th. The Houthis, Hezbollah, Iran directly, ignoring even Hamas. Okay, so given that fact, Israel may be hesitant without direct American support to do a full-scale invasion of Lebanon. They ought not to be. The only thing that ought to be of their concern to them is whether or not they can do it or not. They themselves can do it or not. If they cannot, then I have to look at my own government. I am, all my life, I've been a citizen and resident of the United States, and all my life, Israel has been we're supposed to be Israel's friend. We're supposed to be Israel's ally. They're supposed to be our great ally in the region. But time and time and time again, America has turned its back on Israel at the critical moment. And this is worse than anything I've ever seen myself. So Israel has every reason to believe that America doesn't have their back, whatever they said after October 7th, whatever Biden said, whatever Blinken said, whatever Kamala Harris said about Israel's right to defend itself, because as you point out, every time Israel actually does attempt to defend itself, they're the bad guys, they're evil, they're doing something wrong. So the only thing that should constrain Israel here is their actual ability to do that. Not any noise they might get from the United States government, when in fact, of course, the United States government should be actively helping them take out the government of Lebanon if necessary, and the government in Tehran if necessary. But shy of America getting the balls to do what is appropriate for the defense of civilization as such, Israel must do what it can, to the extent that it can. And I'm with Jonathan. This is a good start. This is just a good start. And that's the way we should look at it. I hope Israel sees it that way too.
Yeah. And Enric says, Owen Jones said soon after the pagers that it was, quote, indiscriminate. Yeah, that does not surprise me. Anyway. All right.
Oh, it could not. May I just say, as Daniel pointed out, these were Taiwanese-made pagers that went through a Hungarian distributor. We can make guesses and assumptions about how the explosives got in there, but it was the intentional policy of these terrorists to go low tech so that the communications on smartphones couldn't be detected or interfered with. And so they went up. So this is as targeted as you can imagine. Hardly anybody uses these kind of pagers anymore. And we knew the distributor, this wasn't an Israeli product, by the way. We knew the distributor, well, assuming we knew the distributor, so that at somewhere along the line, Mossad or IDF or someone involved could put those explosives in those pagers headed to these terrorists in the Middle East. It was as targeted as it's beautiful in one sense, how expertly this was done. But in another sense, it's far too targeted. Like I say, part of why you say this is a good first step is it's great that we've so badly injured thousands of terrorists and terrorist operatives. But look, we have to be less discriminate. We have to move into Lebanon. We have to disrupt the government that has been sanctioning Hezbollah for many years now. Until and unless that happens, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to go on and on and on. And you know, I begin to think sometimes that's what they want. They want an endless war. They want an endless situation where more October 7ths occur, or more 9/11s, or more Nice bombings from 2016. They want Islamicists to kill just as many people in the West as they possibly can. And Israel's the front line, ladies and gentlemen. If they weren't doing it against Israelis, as I say, they would be coming after every other Western country. Um, it is not. It is a lack of. It is the fact that Israel is there and in their face that saves Western civilization right now from being the direct target of these monsters. You think they would spare my friends in Western Europe? You think they would spare you from the atrocities of October 7th? I know they would not. And I know they would not spare people in North America from it either. This is a war of civilization, ladies and gentlemen. And this is, if anything, this was, although it was brilliantly targeted, because you do want to get at the leaders and the operatives directly, and what a brilliant way of doing that. But it is a first step for what really needs to happen. Just a first step.
Um, Somewhat off topic, but Chandler says that we should stop banning. Did we ban anybody in the chat? I mean, if we do, it's very rare. Even people who make rap songs about Ocon and don't mention we don't get banned. So we have a pretty open policy about banning, but that's a reference to Chan. That's an inside joke to people who don't get it. But yeah, Daniel, you don't have to on
We don't ban anyone unless if I see a lot of spam, basically just doing the same message over and over again, or basically spam gets time muted. Basically, the first time you do it, you just get muted for 5 minutes, and then you can again chat. And I also mentioned don't spam, and if it continues, then yeah, you'll get banned. But again, you won't get. We have a lot of trolls in the chat. We have a lot of people who disagree. You won't get banned just for that. It's always just spam.
anything on the topic.
Oh, so I also checked out Candace, the other ovens, and so she said, one of the things she posted is, it is the purest form of evil when people learn that innocent children were killed and their instinct is to crack jokes at their manner of death. Inexplicably demonic energy. And I don't know what to exactly call it, but whenever I think about it, I think of like analogy. Basically, there's like one person like murdering someone actively, and you see someone jaywalking, and you go, "Hey, that person is jaywalking." It's like, why is your focus there right now? And the similar thing, what is the story here? The story here is that thousands of terrorists were killed specifically because they had pagers which were giving out by Hezbollah because they needed to communicate. They needed a simpler form of communication that could be less targeted. That's the story. That's what happened. And yes, unfortunately, some people who were innocent were also injured in that. Why is the focus automatically there? Why are you so quick to jump? And the fact is, because you don't care that the terrorists were killed. You don't even care about the fact that civilians were killed. You don't care about any of this. You just want to attack Israel. That's what you want to do, and you will use everything. And I've seen many different posts, and it's all just, let's, as soon as Israel does something, let's find the quickest way we can blame Israel for this. Again, that's what it always is about. There's no hope, or I'm trying to find the right word for it. There's no want to actually find the truth. There's no want to actually find out, what's the situation, what has happened, and how can we move from here. It's all about let's just blame Israel.
Candace Owens takes her psychologically twisted anti-Semitism now to twisted new lengths. She probably should seek professional help. Her racism has reached a critical mass, I think, in her psychology, frankly.
Well, she could seek amateurish help, which was what we were going to offer on yesterday's episode of the reality show, which was then going to be today. Now we postponed it to Friday because I think tomorrow we'll also have other stuff to talk about. Jonathan, I was going to ask you something and I forgot. So do you have anything to add?
Well, that woman is an evil monster. That's I think all that one can say about her, and I don't think she deserves any more attention. Honestly, as much as all these other crazy monsters, these Owens of the world, I don't think we should focus on them. I think they're lost. The rational people of the world, I don't see how they could twist this. I mean, if they are truth seekers, as you said, then I don't see how, if you are a truth seeker, you can see it in a negative way. I would like maybe you guys have examples of rational people who said that. I guess you do. Okay, well, things are that bad, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, the problem is with the Israelis. The fact that we still don't have, all the sky of Beirut filled with our planes doing whatever they need to be doing, and our tanks is still not good enough. That's the most important issue here.
I remember what I was going to ask you. So, we when we hear the ceasefire now, people talk about Gaza and talk about ending the war and having a deal where Israel, backs off and the hostages are released. Um, what is the anti-escalation ceasefire now equivalent of Lebanon? What does Israel in the imagination of anybody who thinks that Israel shouldn't be doing things like this because it escalates and we should just have peace and a ceasefire? What are the steps that Israel supposedly takes there in capitulating to Hezbollah to allow its citizens, Israel's citizens, to go back to their homes in the north?
Yeah, I've heard some really disturbing. I've seen some very disturbing tweets. They shared it in our Israeli objectivist group, Razi. Maybe you've seen it of such. How do we call him? Ceasefire now people, Kaplanists, who are saying this is a dangerous escalation. This is destroying the chance for a deal. Now we won't be able to have a deal with Hamas because of that somehow. And I think from a certain perspective, it's worse than the Candace Owens of the world, these kinds of people, because they are on the supposedly on the right side of history. They're supposed to defend it, and it's their home. It's only they're not living in America. It's their home, and it's their, in some cases it's their own family, it's their own sons, and they are betraying their country by saying that, and it's very disgusting. It's very dangerous, and there are quite a few such voices. So yes, it's very concerning, Razi, and I just these people are also their brain doesn't really function, I think, at this point.
James.
Yes, well, I think that was a very outstanding point. It's not so much the Candace Owens or even the Owen Joneses of this world. It's those voices in Israel that really do have oomph, that really are active, and influential. And it's true in my country as well, the United States. The far more dangerous crowd are the so-called moderates on it, who want to, oh yeah, well, you're disrupting, as Jonathan pointed out, you're disrupting any chances for a ceasefire with Hamas, aren't you? As if Hamas was engaged in any kind of good faith negotiations, as if they could possibly be a good faith negotiation partner, as if the only issue here were the hostages. No, we're talking about the survival of Israel. We're talking about more October 7th in the future, ladies and gentlemen. In that sense, it's those moderate voices that are, Jonathan is exactly right, are far more dangerous than the wacky anti-Semite voices, which you can sort of predict coming. Those people should be off the radar screen in terms of real policy. I mean, maybe not ours because they have such a big audience, but in terms of policymakers, the policymakers in Jerusalem, London, Washington, D.C., That should be completely off the radar screen for them, and we should be talking about a full-throated defense of civilization in Israel and all of its enemies. That is to say, the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, all of them are armed, active combatants in this war against Israel, and all of them need to be wiped out. And we need to address their supplier and encourager, Tehran. And until and unless we do these things in that clear a way, again, we will have more October 7th again and again and again. And it's those moderates who are ensuring it happen. The ceasefire crowd that says, oh, well, we don't want to escalate. We want to get a deal with Hamas. All that matters is these hostages right now. Anything else that Israel or civilization faces is not even on the radar screen. So it'll just be decades and decades more of Islamic terrorism, hundreds and thousands more slaughtered innocent civilians in horrible atrocities. They'll come up with, they'll break their own creativity records on the horrors and atrocities that they can come up with. Promise.
Daniel.
So just quickly, I should have said it at the start, but I forgot. So yesterday I was claiming, basically yesterday I made a mistake and I confused Shin Bet and Mossad because I was saying Shin Bet would probably be behind this. It would be Mossad who deals with the foreign intelligence. I confused it because it was Shin Bet who actually stopped the plot to kill the former defense minister. We now have a bit more information about this, but so you see the strength of these basically different sort of intelligence agencies. On one hand, one agency stops a plot to kill a defense minister from Hezbollah. This was a plot from Hezbollah, and the other one manages to kill and injure thousands and thousands of Hezbollah terrorists 2 days in a row. I'm really hoping I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. What devices will we bring next? I think Hezbollah is slowly running out of devices. And then I also wanted to talk about one sentiment I've also seen a lot, and it really reminds me of the fact that we are all egalitarians now. Because one thing I've seen a lot is the comparisons. Like, imagine if this were to happen in Israel. Imagine if thousands of Israeli pagers started blowing up, and there is something really weird about that sort of comparison, because it's like, yeah, on one hand, let's say a innocent child dies, and let's say on another hand, a terrorist dies, and you're sad that the child dies, but you're happy that the terrorist dies. Isn't that a hypocrisy? Why are you feeling different about these two situations? And it's like, are you like dropping all the context? Like, do you not care about what is the actual situation? Do you only look at things as pinpoint as you can at the fact that people are dying, and all across the board it's always going to be the similar thing? Yes, people would look at this differently if it was Israelis dying, because Israel is a free nation that is currently defending itself against foreign aggressors. Hezbollah is the aggressor. That's the difference, and that's everywhere. If I've seen attacks inside of Russia when it comes to Ukraine Russian conflict. If I saw attacks inside Russia against soldiers, against military structures, yes, I'd be happy. And if I saw the same thing in Ukraine, yes, I'd be sad. And what's the difference? Because Ukraine is the one being attacked. Like, do these people like not have like the basic, almost like a basic ability to like take in the context and see that yes, situations are different when it happens to different people?
Yeah, but where is the complaint about Russian civilians being killed by Ukrainians as Ukraine attacks inside of Russia? You won't hear that. And that is a measure of the difference with Israel, and a degree of anti-Semitism that still plagues the West. Israel is different. Don't you know?
Although there is more anti-Ukraine sentiment in the West than I'd like to see. But yeah, it's nowhere near the level of anti-Israel sentiment. Davy Boy says, as long as my vaping device doesn't explode. Thank you for writing that. Hopefully, somebody who is watching can can not your vaping device, but smoking is big in Arab culture. I don't know if vaping is, but I'm sure things can be put
Waiting
in
for the
cigarettes as
exploding
well.
hookah.
Yeah, that wow, exploding cigarettes. That would be, although they'd have to all smoke at the same time, right, for it to work. Anyway,
Didn't the CIA try to do that with Castro? I believe that was one of the assassination attempts to make exploding cigarette.
Well, Cuba is a
I think
tobacco-producing country, and Fidel smoked cigars, and exploding cigars have been a party favorite in America for decades.
well, yeah,
All a
cigars are
joke.
bigger, so it's easier to put something in there. Yeah, Jonathan.
I don't know if you mentioned this yesterday, but the fact that this attack happened yesterday, which was the 60th anniversary for the release of Goldfinger, is legendary. And I would have wanted to see more people make that reference. The film that really brought into the role of Q and the gadgets and the Aston Martin. I think there must have been something there. The Mossad people or whoever did that, according to foreign reports, must have made that connection. I think there was something there.
Well,
Well,
there are bits of information that are only known to me because you and I are Facebook friends, and otherwise I would, if you don't post about it, I don't know about it. Uh, but
yeah, if you're into Game of Thrones, Razi, you should definitely check out 007. Pretty cool stuff. In any case, that's a brilliant observation. I mean, and His Majesty's Secret Service right now should be helping Mossad in the same with all the 007 badassery that we see in those movies. I mean, Israel was one time had a vaunted intelligence service as well, and those movies reflect that. Those resources, Britain's resources, should be all on the side of Israel here. Well, the 007 ought to be supporting Mossad in this sort of thing.
Well, in a callback to what we talked to what was mentioned in the Daily Objective about the vote in the UN General Assembly today to impose an arms embargo on Israel, in case people I didn't mention it, right? But I kind of asked people what did the UK vote? Of course, the UK abstained. The UK always abstains. The UK abstained in the partition plan vote and has abstained. Since then, when it comes to Israel, with the occasional vote against Israel, but it's usually an
I can
extension.
imagine no more evil an epitaph than to say some that I abstained when it came to evil. I
Yeah,
abstained
why does the UN ambassador
on
for the UK
October
even
7th.
go there if he's just gonna abstain on everything? He might as well not show up.
Right.
But I don't know if they abstain on everything, but when it comes to Israel, they abstain. And I actually want to read this thing that the troll in the chat said because I want to answer it. The pundits also said that Israel made a mistake to blow up pagers and walkie-talkies now because Hezbollah and Hamas will adapt. Um, that is half true. It wasn't a mistake. It was a great thing to do, but they will adapt. First of all, they are living in fear now, which is great. But yeah, eventually they will adapt, which is why this is the moment for Israel to strike hard and really to change what Lebanon is permanently. And yeah, this was meant to be done as the first act when Israel finally decided to go to war in retaliation for what Lebanon has been doing for a year. And it was done reportedly because somebody in Hezbollah kind of started wondering what's going on with these pagers. So yeah, okay, but this war should have happened. Like Israel should have acted on October 7th or 8th in the north. So now is the time. Otherwise, yes, they will adapt and they will continue to kill Israelis. So yeah, Lebanon delende est, as Daniel might say.
Well, just to fill in for one thing, because apparently the 98th Division is leaving Gaza and going into on the Lebanon border. But again, this might be more for just waiting for the retaliation from Hezbollah, not necessarily again some sort of thing actually happening in Lebanon.
Why weren't they already there once that attack settled? Why weren't they just already waiting? Okay, we exploded the pages. Go, go, go. Why now they're moving? What does that achieve?
Yeah.
Only playing defense. And imagine, like, think about how demoralizing is. And we didn't mention them on the show. The people of the north. The fact that there are 150,000 Israelis living in diaspora inside of Israel. That fact, how do you think they feel about this? Okay, we exploded some pages. Well, when can we go back home? Well, that's where are they? Who even thinks about them? Do these people we've mentioned today, do they care? Does anybody care? The people of Israel care? Who advocate for a ceasefire? Does Netanyahu care? Nobody cares.
Yeah. Continue.
So they should be given justice, and also the moment Israel does something, the morale of Israelis will be so much higher that I'm sure they just wouldn't stand a chance. And people are depressed. It's really depressing to live in a country for a year that is only playing defense, that is only allowing atrocities to happen to it, that the life in Beirut is fine, life in Lebanon is fine. It's really demoralizing. And the Israelis need this morale boost, and it's solely on the responsibility of our prime minister and government.
Yeah. Sheila said a few minutes ago in the chat, but it very much answers what you just said. But Bibi is a coward. That, I think, sums it up. Parting thoughts, James.
Well, Jonathan had a really great point. We've got it just backwards. If we want to encourage the will of the good guys, if we want to give some relief to the Israeli people who've endured now a year, in effect, I mean, it's just a couple of weeks now, and it'll be a year that Israel has endured since October 7th. If we want to give the good guys some encouragement, if we want to have the pro-civilization forces encouraged, then yeah, this is a first step. This is, as you point out, where they will adapt to the questioner say, yeah, they'll adapt. And let's push them back to using carrier pigeons to communicate with each other and with Iran. That would be a good thing. But in the meantime, now that we have them vulnerable like this is the opportunity to actually do something that will have some permanent effect. Act now, Israel. More. That's what we need right now. Hezbollah needs to be wiped out just as much as Hamas needs to be wiped out now. And now is the time to do it. That's my last thought.
There's a question in the chat, which I'm going to read. And it says, question for the panel, mainly Daniel, would Trump hold 2,000-pound bombs for Israel today? Daniel, before I'm just going to quickly answer. Probably not. Trump would be better for Israel than Kamala. Is he better overall? I don't know. Is he good? Of course not. He's evil. He's facing somebody evil. So I get that people would vote for one or the other, though I wouldn't. But yeah, this saying that here's something that one of them is better on, therefore this person is the greatest thing that ever happened. That's a bit of a stretch. Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much covered it. My answer was planning to be probably not. That's pretty much it. I mean, what else is there to say?
Well, I think we still have to celebrate. Nevertheless, we have to be happy that we got rid of a few of the testicles of a few hundred or thousands horrible people that deserved a worse fate, in my opinion. So absolutely, we salute to that. And while we're at it, I just released an article on the issue of the rise of Nazism in America. So if you guys are interested about these guys, go check out my Substack in the description.
Yeah, by the way, as soon as Trump came up, there's somebody in the chat saying Razi is a loony on this issue, and there's more questions and comments. We are out of time, but we will talk about the U.S. elections a lot in the next month and a half, and presumably afterwards, certainly afterwards, if Trump loses, because he'll say he won, and then that's gonna be the issue. But yeah, in any case, we will cover it one way or the other. Not. I wouldn't say we're doing it happily. We'll suffer through it. But yeah, today is a happy day, and hopefully we'll have more shows like today, happy, celebratory shows, where I'm not going to say we're all going to drink, but Jonathan can drink and enjoy wine in the birthplace of wine. So yeah, Israelis can colonize not just Palestine but Georgia as well. Enjoy enjoy your time there. Thanks guys for joining.
Wait,
Yeah.
yeah, can I just quickly so we have Kamala is evil too, by the way. Just so we summarize it.
I did
And
say that, but
oh,
yeah.
okay. And someone is saying Trump is best for Israel. Well, if American election was only about the topic of Israel, yeah, it would be pretty clear, but that's not the issue. And also, we might have a different view. And also, if your issue is you only care about Israel and you don't care anything else when it comes to American domestic or foreign policy, that's okay. But say that. There are many issues that you vote for president on. It's not just one issue.
This is the most important issue in the world today. Anyone who thinks that Razi, going back to Razi's last comment, that think he's a loon, they are the loons. What is happening in Israel today, what is happening in that war, is internationally speaking, in my view, the most important thing happening on this planet today. It is literally the test of civilization itself.
Thank you, Crusader General, for the last minute stoppage time super chat. Crusader General says Hezbollah is now Hadbollah. That's pretty good. Um, and yeah, we open up a can of worms with Trump, but this show is on 5 times a week. I know this week is an exception. We missed yesterday, but and the Daily Objective is on 7 days a week. So again, we will be talking a lot about the U.S. election and everything around it. So stay tuned. Thanks again. We'll see you tomorrow.
Be safe.
Thank you, L'chaim.